I think I'd like to focus on a couple pieces. Number one, you are my messengers. So if you and I are messengers of Christ, remember that a messenger delivers a message that's not his own. And would I be right in saying that sometimes you deliver a message and it's really hard to keep your own stuff separate to it? You know, but we do want to be conscious that the message we deliver is not our own. It's God's message. And part of our life's journey is separating our stuff out from the message of God so that we can offer it in its purity. The messengers always look a little different. When you are in Dublin or New York or Chicago or anywhere, and you're driving in traffic or walking, you see the people delivering messages or food. You know, they have it now in the city where they can order anything they want and somebody drives up on a bicycle 15 or 20 minutes later and delivers exactly what they want. And I don't think that's very good for our children to have that kind of on-demand anything I want, but that's the messenger. He brings it's not personal with him. He does the job. How do the messengers look riding around the cities, bringing things for other people, from other people? They look like concentrating. They look as though they're concentrating. They're distracted from what's going on around them by their obligation to deliver something to someone, from someone. In a sense, what counts for them is the original message, hamburger, whatever, and the recipient of the message. I must decrease so that he can increase. I don't think it was ever really more important than during these days. We have to be so careful. We are being observed. If we're wearing this, have to be really careful not to disgrace it, because this isn't here so that I look good. I am here so that this looks good. That's my job. My job. I've volunteered for the job. Every day I recommit to God. We have done so together now. You and I, accept and understand that the mind of God is infinite. It can be difficult to live out this moment, this week, this month, this year, this decade, understanding and connected to infinity. I think historians do this really well, and those who love history and those who study the writings of those who have gone before us, they really seem to have a wisdom, and they have a place to go to cast their mind back and recognize their significance and their insignificance simultaneously. We're just people in this time. Some of us, sometimes we're making mistakes, and sometimes we're getting it right. But my friends, we are apostles of the returning King. Our call presupposes a willingness to be like the messenger driving around on a bike in Dublin. We're in the community, and yet we are separate from it for a divine purpose. We've accepted this. You feel this. Am I right? Do you feel this, everybody? How many lay apostles have said, I don't really have a lot of friends anymore. I don't really fit in most groups. I'm inhabiting a kind of a separate space altogether with God. My friends, where would you want to be other than that space? I find it to be creative, reassuring, calming, exciting for sure. I'm watching history unfold with very different eyes because I'm a messenger. So you're in the city, you're a messenger, you're driving around, all of a sudden they're doing construction, a whole area of the city is closed off to you. What does the messenger think? How do I get around it? How do I protect the message, get it to the recipients, and get around it? Here's the other thing. Who are the recipients for me today of the message? I asked the Lord this morning if he had any thoughts for us, and he did, and I'll share them with you before the call is over. I'll be careful to watch my time. But I would say this to us all. Someone is always watching us. There was a man, and he had children, and they were kind of adults, 20s, and there were two living at home at one point, and there was a sister and a brother. The sister was at war with the brother over the kitchen. Who was cleaning up, who wasn't cleaning up, who was leaving a mess, who wasn't. She felt very hard done by because she was doing a lot of the cleaning. The brother found her pleased to be more tidy, to be less than lovingly delivered. So there was conflict. Did that bring out the best in him? On the contrary, it was a big joke to him to make her mad, this kind of thing. So the sister appealed to the father and said, this is unthinkable. Do something. He's terrible. He's appalling. Don't you hate the mess he's leaving? What the heck? Let's go. And the father said, now sit down. Let me talk to you a minute about this brother of yours. He said, when I was a younger man, your mother and I had a baby. And he said it was a little boy. And he said, I couldn't resist this little boy. He said when he grew to be about 3, I would come home from work and I would put my boots in the front hallway. And he said, invariably, when I left for work the next day, his little boots would be perfectly lined up, touching mine in the front hallway. He said, this just moved my heart. And he said, one day I was working in the back yard before I came in, and I left my boots at the back door. And he said, sure enough, after a little while, I heard him scurrying and scampering through the house, and he had moved his boots right next to mine, touching mine in the back porch or hallway. And then he said, one day I turned them facing out, just kind of for fun, but also to dry better. Sure enough, the next morning when I went to work, there were his 2 little tiny boots facing out just as mine were. He said, I couldn't resist this little boy. And he said, what it told me was, he's watching me like a hawk to learn about me, yes, but more importantly, to learn about himself. Your example, your state of being, says a lot about you, yes, but it shows the people around you. It informs who they are and who they should be or become. What you do counts. How we hold ourselves in any historical period is important. This historical period is no different. We are messengers. The message is what we are about, not the circumstances of the origin, or the recipients. Let's just do the job. Now, going on with this little boy, one day the father came home from work, and the boy was in the deepest of trouble, in disgrace really, confined to his room. The mother was in quite a elevated humor, and she said the little boy had taken his tricycle, put it up on a 4-foot wall, on the other side of which was a 60-foot drop into the river, and he was riding his tricycle on that wall. Now, you and I both know what Mom was actually thinking. Why did I start talking and not watch him like a hawk? But anyway, she said that was wrong, and etc. Okay, the father listened to his wife. He saw her upset, etc. But he said, you know, inside me, I thought, that's on me, because I'm the one who put him up on the wall and let him walk because he loved it so much, and I held on to his hand tightly. I'm the one who taught him how to ride the bike. He said, it just never occurred to me that I should tell him, don't combine the two in reckless behavior. His tuition was incomplete. The father's heart was moved to pity, understanding, compassion, and love for this little boy. Now, why am I telling you that story? The father also told the boy's sister, you know, when I used to drive, he would stand right next to me in the front seat, because if you're my age, you know, they didn't care about seatbelts. They fired us into the car and hoped for the best. There were no seatbelts, really. So this little boy stood next to his father with his arm around his neck, and he said he would pet me as we drove. He would pet my head, and then he might whisper into my ear, I have to go to the bathroom. He said, I'll be honest with you, I know when you look at him, you see, you know, a young man fighting with you. He said, I don't see that. I see a little boy who put his boots next to mine all the time. My friends, God looks at you that way. He can't resist you. He loves all of us that way, people with whom we agree and people with whom we disagree. The heart of the Father is always moved to pity and compassion and understanding. And so must our heart. Now, I'm conscious of anyone who has to go to work saying, hey, lady, read what God said. So I'm going to do that. So I said, Lord, do you have any comments or thoughts on this for these people who love you so much and who are willing to be your messengers first? And it was very brief, but I thought you might like it. He said, let the days be lived by those who trust me and by those who do not trust me. At the end of the days, we will see who fares better, who lives more happily, who brings peace and unity into the world, who refrains from judgment against others, who allows me to be the source of wisdom and acknowledges my dominion over the world. And let the days be lived. Should I read it again? Okay, I'm going to read it again. Yeah, no, head's nodding. I said, Lord, do you have anything you want to share with this group of beautiful people who are willing to be messengers from you and you know, desist from their own opinions? He said, and let the days be lived by those who trust me and by those who do not trust me. At the end of the days, we will see who fares better, who lives more happily, who brings peace and unity into the world, who refrains from judgment against others, who allows me to be the source of wisdom and acknowledges my dominion over the world. And let the days be lived. What I felt upon receiving those words is write them down. First, Father Dara would always say, just put it on the back of an envelope or anything. So I wrote them down, and then I went on with my day. The mundane tasks, the less than mundane, I just got on with my day. And I would urge you, whatever's going on, to remember you're being observed. What did I say? It hit me so, what you're doing by choosing your resonance is you're communicating to everyone a lot about who you are, of course, about who Christ is, of course, but also about who they are. Should I read that? Mm-hmm. Do you like it? Okay. Okay. Okay, so here. Someone is listening to you today. Be careful what you say. Someone is watching you today. Be careful what you do. Someone craves your love today, your notice, and your heart. be close to Christ, be on alert, and try to do your part. Now, I wrote that on the way over. I jotted it down because I felt it summed it up for lay apostles, don't you think? Don't you think, lay apostles? That sums it up. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, someone is listening to you today. Be careful what you say. Someone is watching you today. Be careful what you do. Someone craves your love today, your notice, and your heart. Be close to Christ, be on alert, and try to do your part. I think if we withhold our political opinions from people, they'll be okay. I think they might just be great. They might be fine. They'll probably be more edified than if we share them. My son called me from overseas right before I came here, and he gave me a lot of political commentary. You know, he's watching, he's paying attention, he's got opinions. I listened. It was hard not to yawn because I'm so taken up with God and the message. Not because I don't understand what's going on. And not because I don't have thoughts about it. But so when my son stopped and took a breath, I said, "Do you want to hear what Jesus said today?" And I read him the locution, and he was edified. He was edified. He said, "Well, I think I'm definitely living my life. I mean, I said, "Well, what are you doing?" You know, anyway, you know what I'm saying, right? Do you understand? Let's be careful. It's not our message. Our job as a messenger, if we stop delivering the message because the times are dark or they're tough, then who are we? Whom do we become? Another combatant? Oh, come on. Christ didn't give us this much, my friends, so we could fight at least each other. He wants us to fight for personal holiness. Okay, so what do you do on a morning like this? You look up Alexis de Tocqueville, who was a Frenchman who made some really keen observations about the United States of America in its earliest days. One of the things he said, I thought was so much of what he says I love, and I don't care what that makes me. So you don't need to write and tell me that Alexis de Tocqueville makes me this side or that side. He wasn't on a side. He was an objective observer of the beginning of the United States of America. He informed a lot of our law and the development of it. He said this, speaking about God. He's talking about God. This is a Frenchman. Everything is predicated on the existence of the divine and morality. He said, I am unaware of God's plans, but I shall never stop believing in them because I cannot fathom them, and I prefer to mistrust my own intellectual capacities than God's justice. He preferred to mistrust his own intellectual capacities, and this was a smart guy. He's someone we should all be looking at, taking a good look at how to come together as Americans by his observations. I'm unaware of his plans, but I shall never stop believing in them because I cannot fathom them, and I prefer to mistrust my own intellectual capacities than God's justice. So we can all be a little bit like that. Let's trust God more than our own stuff. Are you with me, everybody? Yes? Are you doing okay? Good? Okay, we're good. All right, now, we have just a minute left. I'll go a little over for those of you who don't have to go to work. For those of you who do, we'll try to start on time next week. I take full responsibility. That was me. In terms of our contemplation, if you've been paying attention, you're praying contemplatively with us. Sign up for the Contemplative Prayer Weekend because you're going to get, on that weekend, me teaching you how I do it and how I always think I am not that special. If I can pray like this, so can anyone. God chooses to do with me what he wills, but I'm just like you, separate to his plan for me or his will. Okay, so you have to be hardy now. This I'm taking from a writing I'm in the middle of. You have to be really hardy now. So do I. We in the past may have taken our strength from a strong institution, a government, a church. widely available, stability. But now we have to adapt. A plant gets moved from a hothouse into a field or thrown on a pile outside into a garden. Who's got to adapt? The plant. The plant has to adapt. He has to take the rain, the sun, and use them to develop strength and authentic expression. My friends, if anything stops you from being a messenger, your authentic expression has been misplaced or set aside. Conditions are seldom perfect for any plant or person. A hardy plant expresses beauty. A hardy plant expresses beauty. We must be that way now. Less emphasis on that which is passing, buildings, governments, personalities. More emphasis on our personal relationship with God and our objectives as an apostolate in the Catholic Church. To bring back an emphasis on personal holiness. We must have a mature thirst for holiness. We have to look for the beauty in people. The better our heavenly eyesight, the easier it will be to find beauty in everybody around us. And we will begin to understand how God thinks. We will understand how God thinks if we make sure we find beauty in everybody around us. Think of that man with his little boy. He knew the boy was acting badly. He started laughing. He said, I can't help it. When I look at him, I see a 3-year-old whose boots are touching mine. God feels that way about everyone, no matter how distressingly they're behaving. I love you very much. I'm so grateful to see your wonderful faces. I'm happy that we can be together. I love that. You can count on me to push back, whatever is wrong about I'll try to always represent God to you in as purely as I can without personal flaws. Let's be honest, if I'm not representing God, it's from some flaw in myself and not because God has changed. Oh, observing. People are watching you. Now, when we're observing God in the Eucharist, Christ in the Eucharist, does God change? No. He just resonates maybe more powerfully in love. But what changes? We change. Our resonance changes and becomes more like God's. The people who are watching you are taking your resonance a little bit in. So make sure it's something that we want to spread.